Hello, everybody. Welcome to It's a Crime. I'm Linda, and tonight we have a really special guest here tonight talking about the Morphew case, Lauren Scharf. She's been covering this case for the last 2 years, and we're going to dive into it tonight. Before I start, though, and I'll let you say hi, I just want to do a housekeeping thing before I let you say hi, Lauren. Just want to remind everybody, keep it classy in the comments. We know this is a case that riles people up. Keep it classy. You can have a differing opinion, but just keep it classy. I don't know how many times I have to say it. So welcome, Lauren. Welcome. How are you?
Well, good. Well, thank you so much, Linda, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was awesome. We went on your channel there was it last week or 2 weeks ago now I was on with the
I
bunch.
think it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So if anybody wants to see
Time
Lauren's
flies.
channel, I know it's crazy. I do have her link below. She has her own channel, and also she is on Fox 21 News. We've seen her for the past 2 years, and I'm sure other people have seen you cover other stories. But for 2 years, we've seen you cover Barry Morphew and Suzanne Morphew. So tonight we're going to ask a bunch of questions. We really want to dig into your brain a little bit and your experience, and then we'll take some questions if you're cool with that.
Yeah. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Okay. So
Yeah.
take us back to the beginning because you were on it right away, correct?
Yeah. So I actually was the first person at my station that read the press release that we got. And it was more than 24 hours after Suzanne was reported missing, which I thought that was odd, to wait so long. Usually we get when there's someone that goes missing, especially if it's a child, we usually get like a missing report pretty soon after the reporting party files the missing person. And then reading into the press release, the facts of it just didn't make sense to me. Like, where was Suzanne's family, immediate family? Why did the neighbor call 911? And
Mhm.
why was she alone on the bike ride on Mother's Day? It just, there were so many things in the press release that just stood out to me and made me want to ask
Find out more.
answers and get, or ask questions and get more answers for sure.
You make a good point too on the press release because one of the things I noticed right away is, well, how tall is she? How much does she weigh?
Yeah,
Where's the
there were a
description?
lot of, yeah, there wasn't a picture or any description of Suzanne. So it was hard for us to even get the message out to our
Yeah.
viewers, like, hey, be on the lookout for Suzanne Morphew, because we didn't have those descriptions like we typically have in a missing
Yeah.
persons case.
We just basically what we knew from the very beginning was there's a woman missing. She's a mom, went missing on was reported missing on Mother's Day riding a bike, and that was kind of it, wasn't it? There was nothing really else to it.
Yeah, I do remember. So typically, when reporters get missing person reports, we immediately go on social media to see if we can get in contact with any family or friends. And so I do remember seeing a community group. I think it was maybe Salida Community Group, or I don't remember exactly what the name of the group was called, but it looked like some of Suzanne's family members were on there asking, hey, have you seen my aunt or my sister, or,
Yeah.
asking about Suzanne. And so that's kind of where I started making connections with family members, seeing if they would talk with me about Suzanne and things like that.
Yeah, and we've seen in the past couple years you've spoken to Andy Mormon, Suzanne's brother,
Mhm.
and Jeffrey Puckett, who was working that day, Morgan Gentile. Who else
Yeah.
have you interviewed? Because it's been a long time, but I know there's quite a few people.
Yeah, so I spoke with the neighbors who called 911. I've spoken to Melinda Mormon. Well, she has a different name now. She's
Yeah.
been married. But That's Suzanne's sister. I've spoken to some of Suzanne's close friends in Indiana. I've spoken to Barry's close friends in um, in
Right.
Indiana. I've spoken to some of Barry's immediate family in Indiana as well. Um, I mean, initially, I think the first people that I got on camera were Barry Morphew's friend Troy Skinner, and then also one of Barry Morphew's uncle, but he recently just passed away. I think I can't remember exactly his name fully, but there's a story if you go on Fox 21 News that where you can see it was I think a month after Suzanne went missing. They spoke about Suzanne and Barry and what they knew about the case. It was little to no information, but at least we were hearing from someone that was close friends to and family to the
Yeah.
Morphews.
And then you get to know a little bit about Suzanne and because
Mm.
everybody seems to be saying the same thing. She's a sweetheart and, just very kind, very loving human being. And yeah, right. Like that was what you're hearing too.
Oh, absolutely. It was like people were telling me they wouldn't know anyone who would want to hurt Suzanne. She was just like the kindest, most sweet person, God-fearing, just friends to everyone. And it's sad to hear about how great of a person she is, and then to know, she's still missing 2 years now later, and we still don't know, where she is. It's
Yeah.
so sad that we've now gone, two Mother's Day since her disappearance, and we still don't have real true answers as to where she is.
And we'll touch on that too. We'll get to that with the court and all, where they're wanting to look. But in some senses, it's gone by so fast. In some senses, it's not. I'm sure if you ask the family, it's not, right? I always say being in limbo is hell, right? Because they don't know what happened to their beloved Suzanne and they don't know where she is and they just want
Mhm.
answers. So when you first
Yeah, and
got,
Linda, I do remember one thing. I do remember one thing that at the very beginning I thought that was so strange is that I found out that she had a cancer treatment on May 11th and she missed it. And
right,
she's supposed to have this cancer treatment like every 8 weeks or whatever. And this was one of her treatments and she missed it. And it was like, why didn't authorities change it from a missing person to missing and endangered? Like typically when someone doesn't have medication that they need. I thought that was really interesting as well,
great
is
point.
that
Yeah, it was the Monday
they
morning.
didn't mention that.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Monday.
Monday morning. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And some of her friends that were in Salida that would also get cancer treatment next to her, they were telling me this and were really worried about her not getting her cancer treatment, when she really needed it.
Yeah, and something that a person wouldn't miss,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So
For sure.
so when you think of a person who chose to leave, which many people do not believe that, I do not believe that, but when you think about that, I mean, that's a treatment that you need,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
So it goes
absolutely.
along with
And she's the type of person from what people have told me is that she wouldn't have missed that. There's no way. And she wouldn't have not talked to her daughters before leaving
yeah,
either.
yeah, and it was Mother's Day. So when you first got to Salida and you started looking into what's going on there, what was the general feel from the people that you talked to, the local people? Because that's huge news, right? A woman is
So the
missing with 4,000, 5,000 people.
Yeah, so the first time I actually went to Salida was when the FBI was searching that property east of Salida. So that
Okay.
was the first time I went to Salida. I had a couple of my other coworkers who went to the press conference, the one and only press conference before the arrest press conference. I was giving them questions, because I couldn't be there. I had to do something else. As they were, asking the sheriff questions. And then you know, so I was there just the very first the searching of the property east of Salida. And there I felt like there was hope that Suzanne was going to be found. It would have been terrible news, but at least they felt like, they could see people working and searching for
Right.
something. They were seeing investigators actively searching. And then throughout this long 2 years, at the beginning, people just wanted to know, is it safe to even be out and about in Salida in the area?
Yeah.
Because they were like, is someone, abducting women in the area? They were really concerned. There wasn't a lot of updates. There was that one press conference, more than a week, or it was
Shortly
Thursday, the
after, yeah.
following week after, or Thursday or Friday. Yeah, so there was that one press conference, and then talking to neighbors in the area, they were just like wanting more updates. And we were really only getting updates from the sheriff's office maybe every anniversary. So when there was like a 7-month anniversary of her disappearance or a 10-month anniversary of the disappearance, they would
Right.
put something out on social media, kind of giving just an update as far as these are how many tips we've gotten. Suzanne has still not been found. This is still an active investigation. It was
Yes.
like, they had on their Facebook page, the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office had, the tip line number and Suzanne's picture, like on the
But still
first
no
thing you see.
descriptors. I remember that. Still no
Yeah,
descriptors.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then,
And yeah, and so, in the beginning, I felt like a lot of people were fearful. Like I heard people wouldn't go out on bike rides
yeah.
alone. They wanted to have people in numbers. People kept their doors and windows locked in the summertime when it happened. They were worried. I mean, you also have to think about, this was COVID. This is the peak of COVID. We
Right.
weren't supposed to be out camping and things like that. So, I mean, things were locked. Like, I mean, you couldn't go out in restaurants and things like that. That wasn't happening. But I
Yeah.
mean,
There
it
was
was nice
camping
to
in the area.
see. Yeah, like it was nice to see like the big, banners with Suzanne missing posters and things like that all around the community. But those, became fewer and fewer as the months went on.
Yeah, and at that time too, like you said with COVID, everybody's locked down pretty much. And then you have all of a sudden a woman go missing from your small little town. And small towns are, very close knit. And all of a sudden you're going, "Oh my goodness, what happened to this woman? Am I needing to have somebody go with me wherever I go? What's going on?"
Yeah.
It's the natural reaction going, "There's a woman gone. What happened?"
Well, yeah, and some neighbors even told me like this doesn't happen in our small town. Like this is, I mean,
Yeah.
I think in the arrest affidavit, I think Johnny Grusing had mentioned something like there hadn't been some sort of incident like this since the early 90s, that someone has gone missing in this town.
Yeah. And statistically too, from my understanding, it happens, but it's very odd to be abducted, in a small town like that. Well, just given the circumstances, let's just say. So it's just all around bizarre. Mother's Day, all of a sudden, hubby's gone, kids are gone, now wife is gone, and they're trying to put these pieces together. So that was the time around the FBI. Was that when with the concrete, right, where you went to the?
Yeah, so it was a property that Barry Morphew had worked on a couple nights prior to Suzanne going missing on May 10th. I had spoken to Mary Branson. She was a neighbor of that property who had mentioned to me that she had heard some machinery kind of late at night. She couldn't really recall when, but it was like a day or two prior. And then kind of matching up when she told me when she heard it, and then reading the arrest affidavit and finding out information from Jeffrey Puckett as well as Morgan Gentile, I pretty much figured out it was, I believe, the Friday night before before Suzanne went missing.
And that's the Saturday morning was when Barry was on site with Morgan at the beach site and saying flat, 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 right? He wanted the beach to be
Yes.
flat, flat,
Yes.
flat.
Yeah. Mhm.
And there was
Yeah.
some interesting conversation between, I was reading the affidavit, I've done a few videos on it, between Morgan and Barry, where they were talking about, she said something that she could eat a whole entire pig. And then he said, well, I'll have to read it. I'll have to
No,
pull it.
no, no. It was something about how they were talking about hiding a body and what the best place to hide a body. And she was saying a pig would be a best place or whatever. And he
The,
had mentioned that he had known
I'm
a,
going to read it because
a good location.
I think people are going to
Okay.
like to hear this, just to hear just a little bit. It said, when questioned about the job sites on Saturday, May 9th, 2020, Morgan stated she recalled an odd comment made by Barry. Morgan explained after they completed the beach at the river house, she rode with Barry to the next site. Morgan stated she commented, oh, pigs could eat an entire human body, excuse me. Pigs could eat an entire human body in 2 hours. Barry commented that he would be able to bury a body and it would never be found. So that's what they talked about at that site. And I've seen a few pictures of that where they were uncovering some of the concrete. I found that interesting. A couple locals had talked about how they found that interesting, that it was one little section that they uncovered on that. You were there at the time that they already did it, or they were doing it?
I was there during them, like I think it was the second day they were digging up and sifting through the concrete on that property. And now
So
there's a house there. You know, they've built the house on that property.
wow. Yeah, I haven't seen
Yeah.
the new house on it. I've seen,
It's gorgeous. It's a
I
gorgeous house.
bet.
Yeah, right on the
Peacefully the
river.
river.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've talked to the neighbor, you've seen this. Now, do you leave at this point, or are you still working around talking to people? Or do you go back and then you
Okay, so I'm gonna go back because before I even go to where the FBI was searching on that property, I actually went to a different site. I actually went to George Davis's house, and there was a state trooper blocking the road, not really blocking, but like on the end of the road. His road kind of goes up to like a curve, up to like a big hill, or not a hill. It's like I don't know how to
like a
describe it.
rolling hill?
It's just it's a really steep hill, but the state trooper was at the bottom, and I asked him, you know, what are you doing here? And he was like, I can't really tell you that. And I was like, okay, well, can you tell me like how long you've been there? And he said, oh yeah, I've been here literally all night, like since 2 a.m. or whatever. And I was like, okay, but he said he was about to get relieved or whatever. And I said, okay, but you're not blocking the road. I can go up there. And he said, yes, you can go up there. So I go up there. And I later find out that that was where George Davis was living, and I had later found out that that's where Barry Morphew was staying at the time. And so I didn't talk to anyone at the time when this was going up, or when this moment was happening or whatever. And then later, because I had to do live shots at the location where the search was going on, so I just kind of drove around the neighborhood and then went back down and went to the search location. But I just found it really interesting that, you know, there were eyes. The state trooper had eyes pretty
Over
much on
there.
that location,
And
because
it,
the people had told me there was a second location of people searching, but really it was just the state trooper kind of staying in that area.
and was that near the fire station?
So there's multiple fire stations in Chaffee
Right.
County.
The one near
There,
Bear's house.
yes. Yeah. So no, so there's two fire stations. There's one in Maysville where that was the station that Barry was, that was his post kind of. That's not the one that was near George Davis's house. There's one, it's like a training center, and me and my
Yeah,
photographer
yeah,
actually
yeah.
went up there. That's where it's closer. George Davis's house was closer to that area.
Okay, gotcha.
And that training center is phenomenal. I mean, people can stay there. I mean, they do a lot of wildland fire training there. So
Yeah, yeah, I've seen some of that. It's incredible. There was actually a fire, and a lot of my viewers knew about that. There was a fire there that week, near Barry's house. On the Monday, there was a fire before Suzanne went missing. Do you know much about that?
the Monday, so like a week before, like 7 days.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. That's kind of what the fire chief had told me was, and I had interviewed the fire chief kind of just, how does he feel having, one of his firefighters, his wife's missing, and he was very supportive of their family. He had told me, a lot of firefighters had searched with Barry and
yeah.
was really helping their family out as well during this first couple weeks after Suzanne went missing.
Yeah, it was I mean, it's a jumble anyways when somebody first goes missing, right? People are trying, family members are scrambling, they're trying to figure out what's going on. Um, we saw the Facebook post of um, Barry's nephew, right? And then we saw,
Trevor Noel.
that's it. And then we saw Barry's first theory of the mountain lion, and then switch to the abduction, and then the 26-second video. Have you ever seen something like that? Like, I know you do a lot of investigative reporting, so have you seen anything like this 26-second video before?
No, and it's funny you mentioned this because when we first saw it, I remember one of my coworkers called the sheriff's office and CBI, and they didn't even know about it. When we told them, we're like, "Hey, were you guys a part of this video that Barry Morphew put out?" And they were like, "No, we don't know what you're talking about." And then we told them, go check out the Facebook page, and so that was really interesting to know because with other missing person cases, usually the sheriff's office or the police department works with
Yes.
the family and they help them out as far as how to answer questions, if it's a Q&A by the media and things like that. Because like with Gannon Stauch's family, they did a video and even the little girl, jumped in and said like, I just want to find my brother, kind of a thing. And that was done with the sheriff's office. It was a partnership. It wasn't
Yeah,
just them doing it on their own and putting it out on social media. So
sure.
I have not seen something like that before, where a family victim or a family's is just going and doing this on their own.
Yeah, and I think from the point of view too, if it was an abduction scenario in any case, one would probably want the authorities, or they would want to even be there to say, hey, this is what you do in this situation. This is what you can say. This is what you can't say, because you're going to tick off the abductor or whatever, right? So if you're making a
Mhm.
plea, here's the guidelines type thing. So I found it weird because at first, you thought, oh, maybe he worked with them to do this. And then you're finding out, no, this was all by himself. And 26-second plea video, which I've covered in my videos before. Anybody who wants to see that, you can check out my playlist. I have Connecting the Dots series. And I just did one, and we'll talk about the Good Morning America thing in a minute, or in a few minutes. But yeah, I found that bizarre too. So I was curious on how, what your thoughts are on it. And it's neat to hear. And I think other people can agree. It's neat to hear from your point of view of what you saw, what your experience was, and the experience you have behind it, how this is odd, this isn't odd, this is and going through that. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so where are we now? Just in the beginning, right? So you come back, right? You went to Broomfield. We got to talk about Broomfield, because you uncovered all kinds of crazy stuff, including the Sunday, which these were like info bombs, right? You were talking about Broomfield and how, wait a minute, Sunday, you're not supposed to be on the job. And can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
Yeah, so actually, where Barry Morphew and his coworkers went to stay the night on Mother's Day, that's actually really close to where my grandmother used to live, like 10 minutes from my grandmother's house. I grew up in that area. And so I knew exactly where they were talking about when, because at first it took us a while, Morgan Gentile and I was trying to get information as to what wall she was talking about that they
Right.
had to work on. And and it's funny because when I was finding information about the wall, you can go on Google and you know how like Google Maps you can see the satellite image or whatever, and the satellite image is of there's someone in a bobcat, very similar to Barry Morphew's bobcat, working on it, and that was the wall. And I had sent the pictures of the satellite images to Morgan Gentle. I said, "Is this the wall you're talking about?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Is that possibly Barry Morphew or I think it was Cody Cox at the time and
Right.
Cassidy Cordova working on the wall?" And she goes,
Right.
"Yeah, that's." So they actually got caught on the Google
Um,
images, and from the first time they worked on the wall. So
right.
that was it. And so when she told me that, I went to the wall, and at the time it had been redone by the Garrett Construction Company that, you know, first was the contracting company that subcontracted Barry Morphew to do the job. And I had gotten some information from an employee of Garrett Constructions, and he was telling me kind of how Barry Morphew got into doing this wall and how there was all this protocol that they had to do a meeting where you know they were learning about the laws and the city ordinances of Broomfield and that you can't work on a holiday and on a Sunday and things like that. And so the employee had told me he knew about that prior to trying to fix it the second time. He knew about it the first time.
Yeah.
And they all had to sign some kind of contract to make sure that they were going to um, follow the city ordinances, I guess you could say, because that wall is right up against like a highway, and then also there's like a public like trail right up against it too, and so it's traveled a lot because there's apartments right in front of it. And so a lot of people walk and take their dogs out and stuff and bike around there. And so yeah, they weren't supposed to be working on that Sunday on Mother's Day. So
And
that
that
made
job,
me
yeah, go ahead.
well, it just made me like another question, like if Barry knew about this, why did he go? Why was he
Yeah, because
heading
that wasn't
to
supposed to
or
be.
heading to Broomfield on a day.
Yeah, it was supposed to be, I think, in April. Morgan said that it first it was supposed to be in April and then it got pushed out or something like that. And then all of a sudden you have this. Now, one of the things that was interesting is you have this last minute job to Broomfield. Well, he says he had to go there to set up for his guys, but it ended up being, according to Jeffrey Puckett, they didn't have the proper tools to finish the wall job. So Barry's going from Maysville to Broomfield and doesn't have the correct supplies for these guys to finish the job, and then he had to go home, right?
Well, another thing is like when Barry leaves Broomfield to go back to Maysville, right? His crew hadn't really even left. Um, they hadn't even left Salida yet. So it's like, why didn't he just have his crew stay behind and help him search for his wife? It was weird. And if they didn't have the right tools, he could have told them, "Hey, I forgot this tool. I forgot this tool. Can
Grab
you
it.
bring this before?" And that didn't happen either. So it was very curious as to why that happened the way it did.
Yeah, it just seems like, okay, he has a job, he's going out there. Wait a minute, now he doesn't have the tools for people to complete the job. And then Jeffrey Puckett took over the room, right? And I rewatched today. You reported on this that Jeffrey said there was an intense smell in the room of chlorine, right? And you can elaborate on it.
Yeah,
And you
and I
talked to
had
Barry.
asked Morgan Gentile. Yeah, I had asked Morgan. hmm And I had re-asked Morgan Gentile, do you remember this? I asked her again, like, and she said it made my eyes water. It stung my eyes when her and Jeffrey Puckett went in. And then I asked her, I said, did your room smell like that? Because she was in a different room, and she said, no, it didn't smell like that at all. It was just Jeffrey Puckett's room. Um, and then Barry Morphew even admitted to me when I talked to him about how, yeah, he smelt it. He smelt it too. And he said, maybe they were cleaning because of COVID. And then I had
Yeah,
called the hotel, and they told me they don't use bleach or chlorine to clean the rooms.
yeah,
And the pool was closed too. And people say, oh, well, it was above the pool. And I said, well, it was COVID. You got to remember it was COVID. And so there wasn't community pools opened at the time for the
yeah.
hotel.
Yeah, and I saw that you were finding out. It says they used peroxide multi-purpose cleaner. You said in your video the pool wasn't open, and they used that. And a quote by Jeffrey Puckett, because he said there was some weird stuff going on there. His quote was, "It's either foul play or an alien got her." And then he said, "There's no such thing as aliens." The other thing, he when you asked Barry about it, he said, "I'm assuming it's because of the COVID." And he said, "I did nothing wrong in that hotel." That was his words to you. Um, and then it switched in your
And he
interview.
was adamant about me looking at the surveillance video too of the hotel.
That's
And I
interesting.
just said, that's not my job. That's investigators. Like, I just was like,
Yeah, I'm just asking you
I was,
questions. I didn't talk about the cameras, Barry.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so, what was it like to talk to him on the phone? Because you had quite the interview. There, I mean, we only got little bits, which is too bad because we would love to hear the whole thing. But
I
what
know
was
a
that
lot of
like
people would.
talking to him?
First, he just said, I appreciate what you're doing. I just don't trust the media right now. I've been beat up, he said, in the media and online. He said, we're a private family. But this, again, is like 3 months after Suzanne went missing. So I felt like I had given him ample time. I mean, obviously, no family. I mean, there's not like a playbook of what to do when a family member goes missing. So it's like each
Yeah,
person deals with it in their own time or whatever. But I felt like I had been really respectful as far as like I was sending him emails and text messages and letters saying, hey, we would really even just do an interview with you just about who Suzanne is and what she means to you and your daughters and
yeah,
how important it is for people to get the word out and just like bring awareness of Suzanne going missing. And that's what that was my goal, was just keeping the constant reminder of folks that, a beautiful mother of two is missing. And if you see her, if you have any tips to give it to authorities and things like that. And so I felt like I
mhm,
gave him a lot of time to just do that. I said we could only, I mean, if you want to just say, let's just talk about Suzanne, let's just talk about Suzanne, or I
sure,
was telling him, like, if you want to come up with the questions, that's fine too. I felt like I gave him a lot of chances to talk about Suzanne. And finally, I got him on the phone. This was after a trip that my photographer and I did, where we were talking to a lot of his neighbors and George Davis's wife. And so he knew we were digging. We were really wanting to get information. And so I think that's kind of what made him talk more, because we had talked to the Poncha Market lady who
right.
saw, who the employee had saw him, looking through the
Digging through the
trash.
garbage.
And then we had also done an interview with, Mary Branson, the neighbor. Yeah, yeah. And so we had done some interviews and talked to some people that were close to the case. And so I think that's kind of what made him start talking to me more so. And then um, When he first talked to me, he talked a lot about, Suzanne and the relationship that they had. And the first call was like they were perfect. The marriage was very, very perfect. And I don't think he really understood that I had talked to a lot of Suzanne's friends, and they were telling me a different story. They were telling me that Suzanne had doubts of you know, his character as far as being faithful to the marriage, and friends of hers saying that was one of the reasons why they moved away from Indiana, was because they were concerned, or she had concerns and doubts that maybe he was not being so faithful, and
Right.
so they thought maybe it was and I had talked to Melinda too, and so I mean, they were all telling me that they thought it was, a fresh start to move to Colorado. And so he didn't realize that I had talked to some of her friends, and they were telling me information. And so he was just pretty much telling me, their marriage, they had been married, they had dated for so long, and then, had two beautiful kids after doctors told her and Barry that they weren't probably likely going to have kids because of the chemo that she went through and
Mhm.
things like that. And so it was like two miracle children, and then for this to happen was just terrible for him. And he had said that it's hard for them, and he didn't want the daughters at all to talk with me. He kind of just wanted me to just talk to him, and he wanted to give me a background of the Morphews and the Mormons, and he didn't want any more strife between them. So he said, you're getting your information from one side of the family, but you're not hearing my side of the family and what we've been going through. And I said, well, I would love, I've been trying to,
Right.
I was
Yeah.
told him, I said, I've given you ample opportunity to talk with me. So,
And he resisted,
yeah.
right?
And then, the second time, what?
I just said, and he resisted for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, the first conversation was only a couple minutes, and then I texted him something, and then he called me back, and we spoke for another 30 minutes or maybe an hour. And that's when I did a story with just quotes, because he didn't want his recording to be out there public or whatever. He didn't want to be recorded. And then the second time was a longer interview. I think it was almost 2 hours the second time. And that was after another trip where I had met him face to face. And he had called me right after I had just gotten off an interview with Andy Mormon about the upcoming search. And so, you know, I kind of information that Barry Morphew had told me, I had checked with Andy Mormon. And then when Andy Mormon, I had just gotten off the phone and doing a Zoom interview with Andy Mormon. And then I asked him again because he just called me back. And so, the second phone call, the longer phone call that, was made public, some of the interview and things,
Mhm.
that he initially called me because he wanted to apologize for what had happened face to face. And so that's kind of how that second longer interview
Interesting.
went.
So,
And the first interview, he really just wanted kind of just good things about Suzanne, made that public. But I said, if you're talking to me as a reporter and I'm writing things down as you're saying things to me, and you're talking about how you think investigators totally messed up the investigation in the beginning, where he talked about cars driving on that road where the bike was found, and talking about how really the FBI messed this thing up from the get-go or whatever. I said
right.
I can report that, it's I so
And so it's interesting because you're around asking the family members besides Barry, you're getting to the nitty gritty about Suzanne and who she is and what's going on, but yet you're having this other picture painted by Barry that it was perfect. And in my opinion, and the last 2 years has always been, he really wants to have a different point of view, obviously, on the outside. Everything's good, nothing's bad. It's always been rainbows and butterflies when it's not. And I feel like even before all this happened, this would be what Barry wanted before as well. Like you walk around and nobody can know your flaws, nobody can know there's something wrong. But things start crumbling, don't they? They start crumbling. We start reading through the affidavit. We find out that maybe Barry's not what he's portraying in terms like from friends. I know some friends are very much, no, Barry is what you see is what you get. And then you have a complete other side. I know you know this, but I'm going to ask the audience. Did you guys know that Barry buried a bunch of stuff in his old yard and filled it with furniture and some other things and then covered it all up and put alfalfa on top? I thought that was the most interesting little tidbit about Barry. Let me know if you guys know about this. Put yes and no, you don't know about it, because this would be interesting. It's just one of these little things about Barry, and then it starts coming out with his friends and the people or acquaintances also that did business. Was like, well, Barry buried money. All these things came out that maybe doing business wasn't so great with Barry. There's all these things, so we're getting these two sides of the story now, painting a very different picture, right? And even in the affidavit, we're seeing one thing and then it's proving to be another. What did you feel like that when you met Barry, or maybe down the road as you kept talking to him and going, there's something different going on, I got to get to the bottom of it? How did you feel going through this?
Oh, how did I feel?
Yeah, like were you
I
just
just
go ahead.
Well, I wanted to help be a voice to someone who didn't have a voice. If
Yes.
when someone goes missing, all you can do is just try to help the family as a reporter, give any updates you can. And talking to friends and family, knowing just how sweet of a person and how great of a person Suzanne is, and for her to go missing was just something they would have never thought of happening to such a sweet person.
Mhm.
um and so that's kind of just, I mean, my feeling was just, I was hoping, every time I heard of a woman, someone being found, that like let's say a corpse, or bones being discovered in and around the Chaffee County area,
Yeah.
my first thought was to call that department, the fire, the police department or the sheriff's office or whatever, to find out if that was Suzanne, because
Yeah.
obviously the family wants answers. And when I was doing that, right after Suzanne was going missing, I would ask the sheriff's office or the police department, hey, is it Suzanne Morphew? And some of them didn't even know who Suzanne Morphew was. And I asked sometimes, hey, do you know if the family has reached out to you to see if that was Suzanne Morphew? And they said they didn't even know who Suzanne Morphew was, and things like that, which I was
Wow.
like shocked, that there wasn't a bigger effort to get Suzanne's name into every single, sheriff's office and police departments, and to show that, this woman is
Is
missing, and if they find a body and it's a female, to maybe make sure to see if it's Suzanne or not.
Yeah, that's shocking. That's really shocking, especially because, like you said, there's a missing woman. This should be, shouted from the rooftops, right? Be on the lookout, or who are these bones?
Oh,
Is first,
absolutely.
yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy because I guess the assumption would be that people in law enforcement would know. They'd be on the up and up and on that. I know that's happened even in Canada, where there was people fighting. There was one girl that covered 2 years ago. Now her name's Holly, and her dad came from Calgary all the way out to Eastern Canada to find out what's going on, and he's showing pictures to the authorities, and they had no idea who this girl is. It's like, that's my daughter. She's missing. We've been trying to get this everywhere. How do you not
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I know that does happen, but it's shocking because,
Mhm.
I would hope, hang on one sec here. Just have to take care of
And
something.
another thing that I've learned through this case is that, like, I thought that all law enforcement, like, would work together, like, more seemingly, but it just seems like there's a disconnect, or I don't know if it's like egos or there's just not good communication with some police and sheriff's office department. That's something that I found really interesting covering this.
Yeah, hopefully it's something that they learn from. Obviously, you don't want it to happen again,
Uh-oh,
but
did I lose you, Linda?
no, I hope not. Can you hear me still? Are you okay there? Might have some connection issues. Can you
Uh-oh,
hear me,
Linda,
Lauren?
I think you're frozen on my end.
Oh
I can
no.
hear you now. Mm-hmm.
Okay, just a little bit of a hiccup. Okay, let me see through here. What else? Let's talk a little bit about court. Let's talk a lot about court.
Okay.
So Barry gets arrested a year after, right? So Suzanne is reported missing on May 10th, 2020. Then 2021 in May, Barry gets arrested. And now he's going through the court hearings, I guess. What was it like being in there with Barry and his attorneys? And I'm sure the girls are in there because I know you tweeted about it too. But what was it like to be in there?
Okay, so at the beginning when Barry Morphew was first initially had his arraignment and things like that, even during the preliminary hearing, it was still COVID protocol, so we all had to wear masks. So we didn't really get to see anything, it was just like this. So we could only see the eyes, and so that's kind of how you could describe what was going on, is just from looking at people's eyes. And I just felt like every time I walked in and out of the courtroom, Barry would stare me down. Sometimes the daughters, would stare me down. The family would stare me down. And then I had that one incident with one of the sisters during the preliminary hearing in the hallway. And I was just trying to do my job. I was just trying to report on what was going on in the courtroom, people's reactions. And I mean, so much was happening and so much information. It was like you're trying to drink out of a fire hydrant. There
Yes,
was just so much information.
yeah, I
There was just so much
understand.
information in the beginning. There
I
was just so much information in the beginning where we were just typing as fast as we could and tweeting as much as we could. And I felt like I was tweeting pretty much the same information as all the other reporters. And then all of a sudden we couldn't tweet, which was hard for us because all we could do was write our notes on notepads. And I have like 13 notepads with like stacks of like 20 pages of all the notes from each day or whatever. It's a lot.
yeah,
And having to transfer like my written notes onto my computer, that takes time. And then like I have to give a live report right after court and things like that. And not being able to tweet during the day, at the end of the court proceedings, when the judge got switched from Murphy to
Mama.
Ramsey
Yeah.
Lama. Yeah. And so that was interesting to tie in. And then masks were removed and we could go to court, and so we got to see more interaction between Barry and his attorneys and Barry and the girls. And things got more lax as far as we didn't have to sit 3 feet away from people. We could sit next to each other in the courtroom and stuff like that. I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, everybody wants to know these things. And tell me your thoughts on at the preliminary, because to me, and I'm going off what you guys are all writing too, right? I'm gathering all the information, trying to figure out, sorting it out. And but I found in the preliminary, it was so heavily defense. Like the defense had chewed up most of the days. Was it like that, or was that just most of the information? Because it just seemed like defense had all the time during the days and just chewing it up in the preliminary, which typically that doesn't happen.
yeah, I felt like the judge did allow the defense to talk longer than the prosecution. I felt like there needed to. I felt like that Judge Lama actually did a better job with making sure that there was enough, like they got equal time. Um, but during the preliminary hearing, definitely the defense attorneys, Iris Eaton and Drew Nielsen, they definitely ate up a lot of time
Yeah.
asking questions, and really getting clarification from witnesses, especially that one day where Joseph Cahill, that CBI agent, a former CBI agent, talked on the stand. I felt like we talked in circles. And at one point I remember the judge saying, okay, now you've confused me. Like you gotta kind of go back and explain this one piece to me because I'm lost.
Because it just kept
So yeah,
going and going and going, didn't it?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so let's talk a little bit about Iris for a minute, and then we'll get back to the prosecution. But Barry was dismissed. His case was dismissed. But for those of you who are watching, and some of you might not have heard that yet, he can still, if they find anything else, he can still go back. He can still be tried. We can talk more about that in a minute. After the dismissal, Iris is out and she's doing her press conference, right? Explain a little bit what the heck happened, because to those who are viewing tonight,
yeah.
we all witnessed the most strangest thing. Iris attacked you, Lauren, and I've been watching you for 2 years. Everybody's been, watching this case for 2 years, and we're all scratching our heads because she basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, we want to hear your side anyways, but she basically attacked you saying you're the reason that social media is against Barry Morphew and how you skewed it. And I have not seen one iota of something. I'm going to say that right now, and I'm sure other people are going to agree. I haven't seen one iota of you doing anything that she accused you of. I was so shocked by it.
I think you were like so many, especially us on the grass right outside of Fremont County Courthouse. I mean, we were all I remember like after the press conference talking to the other media people, like all the other photographers and reporters were there, and we were all like, wow, I can't believe that just happened. And we were like, what she did kind of just overshadowed what this huge accomplishment that she did with her team of lawyers and for her client too. I felt like and even one of the photographers said I was going to jump in if she was going to bring you into it again. And we
Yeah.
were just I just felt like it was very unprofessional.
Yes.
It was really out of left field. Like I had conversations whenever they would go into court and come out of court. I would talk to, Iris Eaton and Barry Morphew, asking them questions, and she was always, kind to me. I would open the door for them. I mean, there was times where I just was shocked, and I think a lot of people were
Yeah.
shocked about that, and
It
it was just very unprofessional.
it was shocking. I could see her ramping up. So you had asked a question, and I could see her wheels kind of turning and staring at you. And all of a sudden, she started talking about social media. I was like, what's going on here? And then she just unleashed. And I did a video a couple days ago on the daughters and Barry on Good Morning America, but I did touch in that video about this attack on you. And I feel like this was an irrational comment. It just goes to show you, it connected the dots for me as to why I guess she talked about DNA for cajillion days that had nothing to do with the sex offenders. It wasn't. Everybody knows that I go on and on and on about this, but she drove that home. But it was an irrational point, in my opinion, because it wasn't truth. So when I saw her attack you, I went, there we go. Connect the dots that that's just her MO. And then I also thought, I wonder what Barry told her about you. That's what I was also wondering. Like, maybe she's hearing a different side going, well, Lauren did this and Lauren did that, when really you didn't. That's what I got. I don't know. What does other people
Yeah,
think?
I mean, I have no idea what Barry Morphew told. Yeah, I have no idea what Barry Morphew told her. So
I
who
did wonder
knows?
though. I thought, well, maybe it's something that he's saying to her, but either way, it was not appropriate, and it was unwarranted, Lauren. So not a minute. And you handled it very well. Very well. Even
Oh, thank
Elizabeth
you.
says she was out of line, and good for you, Lauren, for standing up for yourself. She also kissed Barry on the lips. So thanks for getting that on camera. Wait, we got to talk about this for a minute. At the end of this dismissal, Barry, the girls, and Iris are walking to the vehicle. And Barry and Iris do an embrace. And Barry, I think it's the cheek, but maybe it was the lips. I don't know. Barry's kissed her twice that I saw. I included it in my video too. And I think that was from you, Lauren, right? That was from you guys that had it on
Yeah,
there. Well,
yeah.
here's the weird thing. There was only embraces. In all the other reporting, nobody had that kiss. Nobody except for you. Like, there's no, everywhere you look and Google it, if you Google it,
Oh, really?
they just gave it looked like just the end of it where the hug is, but nobody talked about
Mm.
that one bit. And for me, that was like, okay, there's Bear. That's my
Well, I spoke with a lot of attorneys afterwards, kind of just getting their take on, just for my knowledge of, have you ever seen a case like this get dismissed, and reaction from different attorneys. And they were telling me when they saw the video that I had done of the, just the live stream or whatever, and they saw that embrace, you could call it, I guess, they were shocked because they haven't seen a client and an attorney have that kind of, I guess, relationship.
well, it was just a little bit, extra, let's just say. Like that,
Hmm.
that was odd. You're like, did he just kiss her
I
twice?
I had heard someone had witnessed something like that previously, and they had told me about that, but I never witnessed it myself until that day.
Well, interesting. That to me was just another, it was just another bit. It reminds me of Melinda, who talked about Barry in the old days, right? The Tom Cruise of guys, he was the woman, what do you call it?
Carrying her room from room, yes,
But
yeah,
she talked
like
about how Barry
the
was the Tom Cruise. He was the good-looking, popular boy at school where all the girls would go gaga. So I can see how that carries him through his life that way. But yeah, there was just a couple shocking things to me. What happened in court with the prosecution? I know they got in a lot of caca, so to speak, about not getting things in time, showing up a half an hour late. What the heck was going on from your point of view that you saw? Because we're just scratching our head over here.
Well, you got to remember this is, they're not used to this big of a case. And then also they have a smaller staff.
Yep.
When I would request documents, it would take them a couple days. It wasn't like I could get it the same day. And even people online, like that cases of interest page, it wasn't, not all of the documents that were filed. I mean, only a few were on that. And,
Yes.
other cases that I've covered in closer to the Denver metro area, those, they just have more people. And so I think manpower was something that really was a hurt for them, the prosecution, because there was even one attorney who ended up getting a new job in Pueblo, and so he left after the preliminary hearing. And then another attorney on the prosecution side, he had health issues and he had to resign. And so they were going through that. And then also, you just have to realize that there were multiple agencies working on this one case and
Yeah.
trying to get those documents and those notes and all the discovery from each of those separate agencies is difficult, especially if there's only one clerk,
Right.
so
There's only so
you got
many
people need to realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
and
there's
also they're on top of the Morphew case, they had other major cases as well. There was a cold case that I think in June it's going to be a trial. So there were other cases, other major cases that they've been working on as well.
Wow. Well, I mean, that
But no
makes sense.
excuse. I mean, they know. I mean, it's like a catch
A
22. They
deadline's a
know the
deadline.
law. A deadline's a deadline. They knew about it. And some of the discovery violations, like the one with the dog handler, they didn't even know that he had a report done, and so there were things where it's just, you got to, make sure your T's are crossed and those I's are
Yes,
dotted, and they
because
didn't.
because they were sanctioned was 12 out of 14 expert witnesses, right? That's a
But
lot.
they were gonna, yeah, but I believe I saw a document where the prosecution were trying to get a couple more back, and they were giving the judge reasoning as to why they deserve to get a couple of those experts back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully they find Suzanne and then they can go back in court and she comes with some answers on that. But I know a lot of people were disappointed in the prosecution from the outside, going, well, what, there's deadlines not being met, now they're getting in trouble. And then they did this dismissal, which they believe Suzanne is under 5 feet of snow up in the mountains. And what was the other thing? And also
Well,
there was
now we know that the judge, he will not be presiding over this case if it goes
oh,
to that, as far
because
as,
he resigned
because
too.
he's now yeah, and I do want to say, people were giving him a lot of heat, I guess you could say, because of what some of the decisions he had made. And I did, in his resignation letter, it did say that he had some health issues and things. And I did notice in court, he had a cane at one point, and he would stand to give his like hips or his, I think maybe knees or something, a break from sitting. And so and I even saw, I think at one point I saw, what was it, I think he was limping, I think, even so I do understand if he had health issues, he needs to get that resolved. But it was definitely a shock. I think a lot of people were shocked about him resigning so soon after the Morphew case had gotten
Yeah.
dismissed.
Yeah, because he was supposed to be doing, all of May would have been the trial, right? And so I think his last is July 25th, and then he's going to be doing
Mhm.
private practice or going back to that.
Private practice, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I gotta address this because I do this in every video now. Are you going to talk about Barry's cell phone searches regarding minors, etc.? I certainly am because it's something that not many people talk about, and it's in the affidavit. And there were searches on Barry's phone. There was searches that had to do with being unfaithful with the Ashley Madison site, which coincides with what family members have been saying. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lauren, on that. Family members had said that there's been questions about Barry's fidelity long before the move to Colorado. And then there was also some searches, particularly, and I'd like to bring this up to everybody's attention because this is important, searching for a grade 9er doing some unsavory things to another male, let's just say, and he was Googling that on YouTube. I do have that in one of my videos. I think it's called Barry's Filthy Searches. So you can check that out. I have the playlist below. But I do want to talk about that just for a smidge to let you guys know, because to me, this isn't over in different ways. Like Barry's behavior, in my opinion, not just with Suzanne, but in these other things, there's just some things that I feel like he doesn't think the rules apply, like this voting. So the voting's coming up, right? And you report, I think you were the one who reported on this, weren't you? That this whole voter fraud happened? Was that you, Lauren?
Yeah. He's supposed to be back in court, I think May 26th or 25th.
Yep. 26th, I think.
Yeah, of May. Yeah.
Tell everybody what happened, because some people don't know about the voting.
Yeah, so you know, and I did find out that the voting, okay, well, let me just say exactly what happened.
Sure.
So supposedly Barry Morphew, he voted for Suzanne for the presidential election, and he voted for Trump for Suzanne. He didn't sign Suzanne's name. He signed his own name as the witness, but he submitted it. And when the, you know, person who collects all the voting, you know, they look at it and, you know, make sure everything's right, they notified authorities about this, you know, ballot, and that it was for someone who's missing. How can someone that's missing vote, you know? And so that is actually the charge of trying to influence a public servant, not the immunity. Yeah.
Right.
So I was saying the wrong thing, but I do want to clarify. That's the so the public servant trying to influence a public servant, that's the voter charge as well. So and then I should look this. I should have had all this prepared, but yes.
It's okay. It's all good. What does he? Do you know?
Yeah. So that's
how long he's. Oh, sorry. Do you know how long he's facing? If he gets, like, what kind of charges he's facing?
I had it up. He could only face a fine. It could just be a fine, or up, I think it was up to 3 years, but it could also be a fine. Let's see if I had it. It's, I mean, yeah, it's really minute, but he admitted to it to investigators that he didn't think it was a crime, because he knew that Suzanne wanted to vote for Trump for the presidential election.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, I can't find.
That's okay. So
I can't find my notes. I'm sorry.
We'll know on May 26th when he goes what happens. I wonder what happens with him on that, because, you know, it just feels like there's a whole lot of rules don't apply to Barry. So what else here? Let's talk about, has everybody seen the Good Morning America?
Oh, here it is. It carries a maximum maximum penalty of 6 years, a felony 4. So he has the forgery, a government issued document, attempt to influence a public servant, and a misdemeanor for mail ballot offense, and then the trying to influence a public servant.
Interesting. Well, I'm gonna be sticking near the tweets or whatever. Are you gonna be there?
I don't even, what day of the week is that? I don't even know. May 26th. I could.
I'm pretty sure it's 26th. Or we just, find out what's going on. That's in 2 weeks today. On Thursday.
Oh, it's virtual. It's virtual. So it's not in person.
Okay. So are they actually going to virtually let all the public watch it?
I think so. It's Judge Murphy.
Okay. Well, I'm curious about that for sure. I'm gonna definitely check it out. What was my other question now? Uh, Good Morning America. So if anybody's seen it or not, it was very short. The girls wanted to speak out. Barry said 6 seconds worth. I did time it, so Bear, if you're watching, it was 6 seconds. You beat your last one. Um, uh, People can let me know in the comments what they think. Did you see it, Lauren?
I did. I did see it. I knew it was going to be short. I wish, they could have had like an extra clip online or something to show like the entire interview. That would have been great. But I understand with national news, you are only allowed a certain amount of time and you can't go over. You know, um, and you have to also remember like this was around the time where the whole like SCOTUS leak happened, and so they were probably even, their video had to be even shorter and things like that. So I understand as a broadcaster that when you have a time, you can only do that time, and so they could only have. I'm just glad we got to hear from both daughters,
Yeah.
and this was the first time. Um, I feel for them so much, and I wish we could have heard more from Barry. Of course, I wish they would have done at least one more clip of Barry than just that 1 6 seconds. But I'm sure they spoke longer in the raw
Of
interview with the
course.
producers and stuff. But
Yeah.
with
Eh,
national news, I'm sure when you have to realize also we haven't seen a 2020 special on this case, and so that's Good Morning America's ABC. And so, when if they do a special on this, we'll probably see some more of that interview just in the 2020 special.
Yeah, I think that's a tough part too, because even coming from the girls' point of view, they wanted to speak and they're finally speaking out, but yet it's all of, 2 minutes that they edited everything out. So I wonder
I
if they
think they were
came away
allowed to
feeling
speak.
right, right. That's the difference. You're right. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down. So, yeah, but it would have been good that it was a
Yeah.
little bit longer just to really get a
Hmm.
feel from it because they've been quiet the last 2 years, right? I mean, you can you speak a little bit about if you talk to any of either of them
Yeah.
or
We all thought, right when, well, no, I haven't spoken to them. Just everyone that I spoke to about this case wanted to hear from the daughters earlier. They wanted to hear from them, you
yeah.
know, a month or two after Suzanne went missing, and we never did. And so it's like we finally hear from them, and it's under that circumstance. So I mean, I'm just glad they are now feeling comfortable to talk. But I wish it would have been a little longer.
Me
I
too.
wish
I
we could
said
have
that
heard
too.
more about Suzanne. Just tell me about, what do you miss most about your mom, or what do you think about, your mom on a weekly basis, or something, just to hear more about Suzanne and the
Yeah.
mom she was to them.
Some of the best memories or yeah, like just a little bit
Hmm.
more about that because you're getting it also from uh, the daughter's point of view. That's their mom.
Yeah,
And that's the
yeah.
first we've ever kind of heard. We've heard from Andy and the siblings and everyone else, but yeah, I think a lot of people feel a little bit um deflated or disappointed too that because it was edited. So just even a little bit more, they didn't have to, but you know, 2 years following this and we just really wanted to hear from them. I think that was the big thing even after 2 years because I could see in the beginning too, things are going on. You don't know if she was abducted, you don't know what's happening. And so words have to be careful, right? And
I did find it interesting, Mallory's, like what she said and what they chose to show was a plea to Linda Stanley to find their mom. I felt like
yes,
that was like a cry for Linda to do everything she could to find Suzanne.
yes. Matt says, why do other mainstream media channels never cover Shoshone Dark? Very good question.
Is that towards me?
Sure.
Or
Sure.
what is
If you wanted to.
MSM channels? What is
Mainstream media,
MSM channel?
mainstream media channels.
Oh, mainstream media. Yeah, because I mean her case got dismissed, and also I think also I don't know. I mean she claimed that they were just friends, and I don't know. I mean that's a good question just
Let,
for
let
other
me ask
stations maybe. I'm not
let me
sure.
ask the audience this. I don't know many women who are just friends who'd be at a hotel room getting flowers on Valentine's Day and sharing a room. So uh maybe the people get in there. Have you guys in the comments? Let me know. Have you or haven't you spent time? Well, and there's some discrepancy there because there was they're saying that July there was something going on with Shoshone, but Barry's saying no, that was in October that things started. They start even he even saw her.
Met her. And
Right.
yeah.
So I think that was carefully chosen words, in my opinion. But I know there was chitter chatter about them having it sooner. So here we are, May. Suzanne goes missing by month 3, and even if it wasn't in July, then October. That's 5 months that go by, and now this woman is in your life, who ends up stealing a package from the residents. Do you end up knowing? Do you know what was in the package at all? Do you know? Are you allowed to say, or is there anything you could? Is there, or maybe you could just
So
refresh
according
everyone's
to
memory what happened?
Yeah, so according to friends and family of the Morphews, they had told me that Barry Morphew, so he had just gotten out of the jail because he had posted bond, $500,000, and they were living at like a vacation property right near where the Morphews used to live. And I
Yep.
guess Barry Morphew had allegedly uh, um, purchased like a drink, like what is it
I
called? A
knew it.
pre-workout or
I
some
knew
type of
it.
like protein or something like that that you put in your drink or whatever. And it had
Love
accidentally
it.
gotten delivered to the wrong house. And Shoshona just allegedly, she just volunteered to go over there and get it. And then the homeowners of the Morphew home that they purchased it from, Barry Morphew, they caught her on surveillance video picking up the package, and they're the ones that pressed the charges. The sheriff's office said, "Do you
Yeah.
want to press charges against Shoshona?" And they were said, "Yes, yeah, we don't appreciate her coming onto our property and taking a package that they didn't know if it was theirs or not."
I had guessed. Okay, this is why I'm laughing hysterically, because I had guessed it was probably his protein drinks that he's for working out. I know it's pre-workout, but it was along the lines. I'm like, it's probably some supplements for the gym, and it ended up being it. Anyway, I have to laugh a little bit about that because that's hilarious. I don't know why I find it so,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
is.
Oh,
So interesting. So she got in trouble for that, and then she went to court. I
but
don't
if you
even.
think about it, it's that case that made it. People Yeah, well, people need to realize that case made it so that the Judge Murphy, couldn't reside on the murder case anymore because
That's
he
right.
knew like her attorney's like law firm and stuff. And so because of that, she was a potential witness, and so that's why it got switched to Judge Ramsey Lama.
That's so interesting. So now, wait a minute, because we have to talk about the ankle monitor for a minute. This is a shocker to me. Okay, so he gets bond. He wants to stay near the Morphew residence with the VRBO, or as you guys call it, Airbnb, whatever you call it. Canada, we call it VRBO, vacation rental. He wants to stay there, and now his ankle monitor doesn't work. It only works if he goes into Poncha Springs, but during the day, it's like free. Rules don't apply to Barrie. Can you talk a little bit about that? Did you miss it, Lauren? I know you have a little bit of a delay.
Sorry, you cut out. What did you say?
It's okay. About the ankle monitor.
About the ankle monitor?
Yeah.
Okay, so from my understanding is that when he got into like the Maysville area where like off of County Road 225 where he was staying at the vacation home, the service was so bad it wasn't registering or whatever to wherever wherever it registers to. Anyways, there wasn't enough service, and so every day he had to go into Poncha Springs where it would kind of download all of the data from the ankle monitor. So he had to go into town every single day so that it could download. And the judge even said, like, if he doesn't do this, then that's a violation, and he could be put back into jail.
Right. And then he was allowed to go to Gunnison, right? Where the daughters are, he was allowed to go.
Yeah, that was, I think Judge Ramsey Lama is the one who decided that he could go to see his daughters. It wasn't Judge Murphy.
Interesting. What about, okay, so let's talk a little bit about, we're going to fast forward a bit, about the area that they believe Suzanne to be in, which is near the Morphew residence, according to the documents, correct? And I looked at the weather report, and it looks like
close by the Morphew home.
Yeah, it looks like the snow is starting to melt from the mountains. I only saw a little bit in some of the cameras, I guess the webcams that are up. It looks like the snow's melting.
Yeah, it's been extremely dry here, and we haven't had a lot of snow or even rain. I mean, just today there were like multiple fires in Colorado Springs. The airport was shut down. They had to evacuate it.
Wow.
So, yeah, snow is definitely melting in that area. I'm not sure if, in the court documents it had mentioned 5 feet of snow. Maybe it's down to a foot of snow. I'm not sure, I'm not sure where that area is, but people need to realize also there might not be a road up to this area or whatever. And so it might be a treacherous area where some equipment might not be able to get to the area that they're searching. And so it depends on the snow. Some areas there might be 3 feet of snow, there could be drifts.
Yeah.
It just all depends on where that area is. So people need to realize that too.
Maybe a bobcat can go up there. That's my little. Okay, so.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Or like a four-wheeler or a dirt bike or something like that.
Dirt bike or four-wheeler or yeah, bobcat, mountain lion. Let me ask you this, because I know. Well, let's back up first.
Yeah.
I got to ask you about her being found. Do you think that they are daily searching for Suzanne, or what do you think?
I would hope so. I would volunteer if they needed any extra hands or whatever. I mean, Right now, I've asked people in and around the area of Maysville if they see anything, let me know, because I'm sure once that they do the search and start digging or whatever they're gonna do, I'm sure the word's gonna get out, and
Yeah.
people will hopefully let me know, and so I can report on that for sure.
Yeah, let Lauren know. If you know, let Lauren know. Um, what was my other question about that? Um, shoot, there
Yeah.
was something I was gonna ask about her being found. It'll come to me. During your time that you have been reporting and investigating and just, going through this, was there ever a point in your time, or has it been it all the time, that you felt like your safety was in question?
Oh, yeah, I mean, there were multiple times where my safety was in question. One of the days at the preliminary hearing, I actually, one like a deputy wanted to escort me into the courtroom. I kind of just stayed in my car until the media was allowed into the courtroom. So there were times where I have gotten threatened throughout this whole time, and yeah. You kind of just have to keep doing your job, keep looking over your shoulder, and, just pray and hope nothing bad happens to you.
Yeah. I find with this case more than other cases, it gets crazy. Um, like, I've had threats. I've had people are just crazy. They're just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, with this case, there's been so much like hate online and yeah, threats online I've had. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. And just actually, when after I was on your channel, um, I had somebody right after. There's two people actually that came after me after I was on your channel. One didn't like that I was on your channel, and the other person had been sending me threatening messages in the last few months, and then just got him angry again. But there's a beautiful thing, if anybody wants to know, there's a beautiful thing on Google through email that you can actually report abuse. So just so you know, this is to protect yourself. You can report abuse to Google through, if it's through Gmail or whatever. Um, it's a beautiful thing.
Hmm.
So just so you guys know that, to keep yourself protected, don't listen to the crap and just forward and report them, because it it's nuts. It is in this one particular. It's funny because even I did a couple videos in the past, like we're talking 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah, when I first did some videos about Barry and his behavior, there were a lot of angry people over it. But we went back and reviewed it, and it really wasn't that crazy. But people go nuts. They still are. But you know, people are going to have their own opinion. It's okay. It's just don't threaten to kill people. Don't threaten to harm people. Just don't do any of that, That's
Yeah.
where it turns super crazy. So, and I've done a lot of cases. I'm sure you have too. And like you said, do you find this one's just a weird one comparatively?
Oh yeah, this one the attention not even, here in the States, but even internationally has gotten so much. And I don't even know, people make up all these sock accounts, which I didn't even know was a thing. So like when I'm like trying to report someone, maybe, it's like, is their name really like Molly or, Kim or whatever? It's just
Right.
like you don't even you don't even know if it's the person behind what their name is or even their profile picture. It's
Yeah.
like you could be really talking to a dude behind a female's profile, or you just don't know anymore with
That's right.
anyone can be behind a keyboard saying what they want. I kind of a lot of someone told me early on in my career is that they're going to say what they want. It's like you can't stop them, and you just have to ignore it, And
Yeah.
so I try to just ignore the
Do
hate
your
as
best to
much as I can.
ignore it. Yeah, do your best, because I think when you're in the spotlight, you, me, other YouTubers, people on the news, there's always going to be someone, right? There's always going to be someone have an issue. Um, yeah, you just do your best. People don't realize, I think, that through life there's bullies, right? In regular life, growing up,
Mm.
going to school, there's bullies. And then you grow up and then you're doing something like this. And I think people don't really realize that the amount of bullying is at a grand scale every day compared to, just going, be dealing with one bully. Now you're dealing with 100 in every 1,000 or 100 in every
and
10,000.
and people need to realize that the bullies that were yeah, and the kids, people need to realize that the bullies that were on the playground, they grew up and they might still be bullies, and they're just
Yes.
doing it in a different way, like a different
Yes.
platform, like, social media and Twitter and whatever. So,
Yeah.
you just have
They,
to deal with it. I just really ignore them.
yeah. They've grown accustomed to it. Right. And then some of them just got better. Let me see what other, does
Yeah.
anybody have some questions for Lauren before we finish?
I do want to say one thing. If
Yeah.
anyone's in the Salida area this Saturday, May 14th, they're going to have a vigil for Suzanne. I know a couple of ladies are putting that together. If anyone wants to be there, it's at Riverside Park at 2 o'clock.
Perfect.
I plan on having hopefully a photographer there. So again, it's in Salida at Riverside Park at 2 o'clock on May 14th.
Awesome. Awesome. I know there's quite a few people who do watch from that area. So hopefully they can make it in there, and I'll look forward to those pictures as well. Let me see. A lot of them are asking about the attorneys in the earlier comment or questions. We kind of covered that with Iris. The snow we've already talked about. Okay. I did pretty well. I went through a lot of this. A lot of them were giving you kudos about standing up for yourself. Okay, let's see what these guys say. They're asking, will the daughters
Well,
be there
thank you.
on Saturday? Do you know if the daughters will be there?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know. It would be a great surprise.
Yeah, that would be. Let me see. I think Leia's asking, so is there a way of finding out when they are going to start searching for Suzanne? I think they would be already started, wouldn't they?
I'm hoping they're already searching right now, and they have been since, the dismissal.
Yeah, I would hope so
That
too.
would be, great.
Oh,
I
nice.
was going for Suzanne's 2-year anniversary. I was going back and listening to some of the sound bites or some of the interviews, the raw interviews that we had gotten over the last two years. And I found one interview that I don't know if he even aired. This woman who lives in Salida, she has over like 300 acres in and around the Morphew property, and she gave permission to Andy Mormon to search that area, and she said she even had some mines on that property. And I thought that was really interesting that she came out to the search to just give permission to Andy to have them search her property. And she said she's lived in Salida for 50 years and nothing like this has ever happened
Wow.
before. And she said, she thought Andy Mormon was such a great guy and everything. And so I thought that was really interesting.
And here we have this stranger opening up her 300 acres for Andy to search. And yet
Yeah.
Barry
Total
was,
stranger, never met him before. Yeah.
and yet we have Barry protecting his property with a rifle on his back. That's interesting. I know what I was going to ask you about these cadaver hits. During the search, there was cadaver hits, and
During Andy's search or
yeah,
the investigators?
Andy's search.
Which one? Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, Andy's, and there was one where he was sitting beside, I think it was the tree, and they weren't going to dig. Do you remember
Yeah, I don't
something?
know if I don't know if they ever digs. Yeah, I remember that. I remember watching it, I think on Profiling Evil, hearing that, and I don't know if they ever dug up that tree or if they ever dug.
Even I found it interesting in the affidavit with the cadaver hit on the bobcat, and the dog sat down in the bucket or in the seat. He sat down and was,
In the seat, yeah.
and they said there was nothing pertaining to the case. It was
Well, I
weird.
think at the time of when the arrest affidavit had come out, they hadn't gotten back, or I don't think they had gotten the data from the Bobcat completely finished or something like that. That might have just been a rumor I heard, but I had
Yeah.
heard something like that, was that they still had more investigative work to do with the Bobcat.
Well, and it was interesting because in court, they had bobcat information, but only until the 9th. And I think throughout the night, a little, just the 9th, I think, and there was nothing on the 10th. And I thought, why, if he's brought his bobcat, yeah, stopped on Saturday night because he brought his bobcat in, and then there was nothing after that. And I thought, well, that's super bizarre because he would have used his bobcat bringing it back home and unloading it, but that was not even on there. It was weird. There's a few things that
Well,
I,
remember the one thing that Barry Morphew had mentioned to me is that he had messed up one mechanical thing on his Bobcat. And so it was a mechanical thing. So maybe that's what, I don't know. I mean, I just thought that was interesting that he said that to me.
oh yeah, the mechanical thing to his bobcat, right? Yeah, that I
That
talked
was
about
one thing he had told investigators, something that, yeah, yeah.
I found it interesting because I covered that in a couple of my videos. I found it interesting in the wording of it. He didn't say to you, "Yeah, Lauren, I got my blade replaced on my Bobcat." He said, "Well, that's because I did a thing to my Bobcat, a mechanical thing to my Bobcat." I
Yeah.
found it very
Mhm.
interesting in word choice.
Mhm.
Okay, let's see a couple more questions, and then we'll let Lauren have the rest of her night. In slide at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Okay, they're giving out. They're so kind. Everybody's so kind, giving each other information to help out when
Linda,
the
can I
video.
ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay, so you've covered a lot of cases. I mean, what made you start getting into covering crime stories?
um, well, I used to love watching true crime from when I was a teenager. I used to chat with my dad and we talked about the O.J. Simpson case. And then it went from there. And I actually
Oh,
wanted to become a prosecutor. However, life changed, and I had babies, and so I didn't become a lawyer. And then
oh,
when I started this channel, I was following the Heidi Broussard case in Texas, and it was a best friend
mm.
whose best friend got pregnant, and the best friend faked it. So one Heidi got pregnant, the best friend faked it, being pregnant, and stole her
I
baby
remember that.
and ended up killing Heidi. So I don't know what it was. At the time, I had lost quite a few people in my life, like 5 people. Well, I guess 4 people and a cat, in a very short amount of time. And there was two of them with
Oh,
weird circumstances. So
Mhm.
something in me was like, I'm just going to dive into this case a little bit and just
Mhm.
see what I see. I'm just going to put up a video and we'll just see what happens. And I put up a video and all of a sudden all these people were coming to watch and they wanted more and I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm just going to do more." And then it just turned into what it is today. That's kind of what happened. And I didn't realize it. Like my brain works in a certain way and I like details and I like patterns and I like all that. And I was just doing what I do and people are like, I want more. So okay, I'll just do more. And here we are. That's where I'm at. It's basically where, yeah, what happened.
Well,
So
you do a great job. I love all your videos.
thank you, Lauren. I appreciate that. Yeah, I love to dig in, as you know. I just I like connecting the dots, and sometimes I see things and sometimes people aren't happy about it. Um, like Barry's pattern, I know when he lies. And
Well, yeah, that was something I'd never even caught on until I saw your video about the blinking. I never saw that before.
yeah, so I did a video when he first, his 20-second video. That was right when it came out. I know I caused some controversy about it, but I see patterns in people. I did that with Trezell as well, and sometimes there's a pattern with. Well, I know there's a pattern with Barry, and it ends up being um, when he's not truthful, he double blinks. It's not with everybody. It's just this is Barry's pattern, and so in the Morning America. Um,
Mm.
thing, he double blinked saying, I love my wife. I love my daughters straight and then I love my wife and then I just want to find her. Right? So that was part of his whole pattern in his 26-second video. And this was long ago before we knew many details. And then right, I want her back so bad, he kind of trailed off. So that was one of my things. So anyway, and one of the other things is my theory on the triangle that I've been pushing for a long time. I just feel like Barry so didn't want people to be around the house. So I felt like that's where she is near the house. So it did not surprise me
Mhm.
that people they want to look near the house. I just don't know where that is.
When you read the dismissal, without prejudice court document, and you read the part where they think that, Suzanne's near the home, what was your reaction? Were you just like, I knew it?
Yeah, it was well, at first when I first heard the news, I didn't read the document yet. I was like, no, what happened? But then I read it and I did a live because I was like, no, we got to read through these documents. As soon as it said near the Morphew home, I just got tingles because I've been pushing this
Mm.
triangle thing for so long. And he's the one who called it a triangle. He's the one who called it himself. Don't go over here, right there. We already covered that real well. Um, and I just felt like he was very from everything we gather controlling of Suzanne. And I say this even after death, he still wants to be in control, in my opinion. So that's why he's near the Morphew residence, why he wanted to stay there and didn't want to be anywhere else, set up cameras. And yeah, I just think it didn't surprise me. Did it surprise you where they're looking?
No, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I mean, no, I wanted them in the beginning to really check the Broomfield wall. I just had a feeling, but reading over the court document, it does make more sense that possibly Suzanne could be near the house, you know. So,
Yeah. I really truly hope they find her and I hope she comes with answers. The evidence, I really want that.
Oh, I lost you. What'd you say?
I just hope she comes with answers if they find her, that she comes with the evidence needed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I hope, when they do find Suzanne, that like the right person is held accountable for sure.
Um, yeah, I really do. Betty says Chris thinks Suzanne is under one of those trees. He even showed discoloration on the lower needles of one tree. He said that he told law enforcement there they've done nothing. Too bad we can't do it. Wow, that's interesting. So I did a video a couple weeks ago about the body farm and how they are doing studies observing the changes in foliage and trees with these cadavers, so in hopes that they'll find missing people, and that instead of going to this vast forest, they can concentrate on an area. And so I was sent the picture of of that tree, and there's heart rocks underneath it. Did you see that, Lauren? There's heart rocks underneath this tree that's discolored. And I've thought that was interesting. They're big boulders, but they look like hearts. I'll have to send it to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. And that's near the Morphew home?
From my understanding, yeah. So, and he bought
Yeah.
3 trees, right? That week?
Ah.
Might be lagging a little bit.
Before Suzanne went missing?
Yeah, that week.
I understood that he bought a lot of trees for his workers and his job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he's a landscaper. But it was interesting that the pot was the planter that was thrown away in that 5 Broomfield jobs, right?
Yeah, I believe it was thrown away in the hotel dumpster.
Yeah, because there was 5 dumpster runs. And was it 5 clothing changes he made that day? Was it 5? Oh, we just lost Lauren. She may be back. Maybe her connection died, but she'll be back. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it this far. Um, it's been nice having Lauren on. I haven't done a live stream with a guest in a very long time. There she is. She's back. There
Sorry,
we
my
go.
internet, something's happening. There's like a big lag and yes, the planter pot or whatever was found in the hotel. Like that was on the surveillance video that he was throwing it away at the hotel
Yeah.
dumpster. And yes,
It,
he changed a lot. Um, he did change a lot of different outfits that day on Mother's Day.
yeah, like 5, I think it was like 5 changes or something like that, constant. Very interesting. It's fascinating and horrifying and sad all at the same time, this case. I just
I
want
think he even told investigators he like took a couple showers too that day.
I would wonder what his regular shower routine would be. And just, like what's their pattern,
Yeah, that's a good question.
Maybe
Sorry,
they're
my internet, we're like lagging. I feel like
it's
I'm
all
talking over
good.
you at some times.
It's all good. I did the same thing. It's okay. We are understanding. So let me see a couple more and then we can hop off, Lauren. I'm so thankful for you to come on here. It's been a long time. I've wanted you to come on for a while, so it's great.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, now hopefully we can get back together again once Suzanne's found, because we're going to put that out there that she's going to be found and that
Yes.
we'll be able to move forward on that, and hopefully there will be, back in court and all that stuff, and we can get justice for her for sure. Let's see.
Yeah, and I'll also be covering the Gannon Stauch case
I was going to ask you
whenever
that.
that happens too.
I was going to ask you that.
Yes, yeah.
Letitia goes back to court on June 9th. And so I'm hoping that we can find out a trial date. And if the stars align, then hopefully I can be there. For Gannon's my heart.
Oh,
Like, Gannon is my heart. I would have been like
yeah.
3 months, I think, after I started. I found out he was missing,
Oh,
and I was every day on the case, every single day, trying to connect dots, trying to find him.
mm,
I was up till 2 in the morning. Then, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'm trying to put things together and wake up in the morning. So, Gannon Stauch, I will see that one till the very, very end. And all my
yeah.
cases really, but that one especially, I will make sure that that goes through. And I would like to be in front of Letitia so she sees me, because she was responding to my videos, but she was
Oh,
she was
wow.
contacting reporters and answering my questions. It was very interesting.
Yeah, she's very interesting in court when she does show up. The rare occasions when she does show up, her demeanor is really interesting. She doesn't stare. She doesn't look at the Gannon's dad or Gannon's mom either. She just kind of stares right at the judge and waits till the judge asks her a question, and she answers usually yes or no, sir. And she hasn't been in court. I think the last time she was in
She
court
chooses
either.
not to be. Over and over,
And,
doesn't
and and
choose.
also it's like I'm shocked that she's wanting just a bench trial, that she doesn't want a jury. And her defense attorneys are like, please just do a jury trial. There's,
Yeah,
11 people versus one person,
yeah.
deciding your fate. So
But she does some
we'll
weird
see
things,
what happens.
like wanting to represent herself. And I mean, she's a one woman, what show. Like, she's quite the human being. um I think we lost Lauren there for a second. So we've been speaking about Suzanne Morphew and Barry Morphew for the last couple hours. We're just touching on Letitia Stauch and the Gannon Stauch case, and hopefully, well, there Lauren is. Lauren will be there as well to report on that. Jean is asking, were any of the coolers found, or are they buried? I just was reviewing Lauren's interview today, and she was talking to Andy, and he said they were wondering where the coolers are, but that's all we know. So Lauren's stuck here for a minute, so we'll just keep getting some comments. Hopefully she can get that worked out. Yeah, so she's frozen. It's okay. She'll be back and we'll be able to wrap it up. I'm glad you guys were able to be here tonight. Thank you to the mods for helping out as always, and thank you all for being classy. So somebody was asking when the voter case is. It's going to be May 26th that Barry's going to be back in court. June 9th for Letitia. So we have lots of cases going on right now. Oh, I'm so glad you're enjoying it. That's awesome. The blankie, I mean bobcat. Yeah, that's what I said. It's blankie. So anybody have some more questions while we wait for Lauren to come back, and then we could, oh, there she is again. Awesome. There we go.
I don't know. My internet's just not doing good tonight. I'm so sorry.
It's okay, Lauren. We understand. We'll wrap it up soon. One more question though, because I know off stage when we were talking in backstage, I should say, you were saying something that you know about, or you know of the people in the Vicki White case. I don't know if people have been following this. I've been working on a timeline, but tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, so I actually used to live and work in Florence, Alabama, where the Casey White, he was in the Lauderdale County detention center there, and that's where Vicki White worked. And I knew Vicki White. Covered a lot of cases in Florence, Alabama, since I worked there for. I worked in Huntsville and Florence, Alabama for 2 years,
Wow.
and lived in Florence for an entire year, just literally a couple miles from where that detention center was. I did cover Casey White on a couple of occasions there, and he is just so big. He's 6'9". I mean, he's just huge. He sticks out, out of a crowd, and he has those kind of bigger ears that kind of push forward, and he's just a giant, really. And people I spoke to in Florence are just shocked about Vicky, and she lived this kind of double life
Yeah.
where and it was interesting when they finally caught Casey White, what he said about uh you know go look at my wife. I mean, he had mentioned something about his wife, and it was just so confusing. People were like, well, did they get married when they were on the run and all that stuff? But um it's interesting to it will be very interesting to hear about if he ever talks about what they did for the 11 days, and the
Yeah.
psychology, the just like the mentalness, like how did that even come about and everything like that. I know that Vicky White, her and her ex-husband were living together supposedly, but he had recently passed away, and she sold her house for way under market value and everything. But it's interesting to maybe find out exactly when their relationship started in the jail. And at that jail, I have reported on escapes from that jail before.
Really?
Yes, yeah.
I'd be
But
curious
it
how many.
but it was never like a detention center employee was in on the escape. It was someone typically like going on a work assignment or something, and then just walking off the work assignment. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It
um
wasn't like Letitia measuring herself to get out
no,
to
no,
escape the jail and
yeah, passing notes to people, and yeah, no.
and
Was
threats in her peanut butter.
Yes.
Wow, that's so interesting because yeah, 6'9" that guy is. I remember in high school we had a really good buddy, and I'm only 5 feet tall. So our buddy was 6'5", and he drove like this little small car that was hilarious because when he's in there, his knees are like up to his head, and he's driving.
Uh-huh.
But I remember 6'5" is huge, so I can't even imagine another 4 inches on top of that 6'9". And
Well, if you saw the video of him like going into finally the Lauderdale County courthouse, which I've
yes,
done so many live shots outside of, it's so interesting to see that this story made national and
right
international
there.
news or whatever. And poor Rick Singleton, the sheriff, you can see him compared to, and Rick Singleton's a pretty big dude too, the sheriff. And Casey White is like a head, like
Towers.
shoulder, just towers over everyone.
So the other
So
guys look small, but really they're not. It's just Casey's
no, yeah,
huge.
he's just a huge dude. And I had heard when I had heard, about this whole case, and that they were on the run for a couple of days, or, a week and a half or whatever. I had heard something like they were pretending that he was in a wheelchair, and so you couldn't see the height difference
Right.
between Vicky and, yeah,
Yeah, I
bizarre,
mean, that's a
bizarre case.
crazy case because they're even saying the people who know her, she was working for 17 years
Oh
and
yeah.
employee of the year, and people just like good rapport with everybody. And yeah, just double life, like you said. And then all of a sudden she said, you know, he has an appointment or whatever it was, and then just took him right out of the jail.
Yeah, to see the surveillance video of her just like opening the door and letting him come out, and it was something you had to have two deputies to take someone, an inmate, to any appointment or
Yes.
whatever, and to find out there was never a mental evaluation for him. I feel so bad for the family of the victims, the one he allegedly confessed to killing, that family, that they were kind of on pins and needles. I think one of the sons lived in Tennessee, close by where one of the cars that they had, ditched or whatever. And so he was, constantly on pins and needles waiting to find out if they had captured him or not. So,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I've been following it behind the scenes while I've been doing the other videos or whatever, and
Hmm.
just going, oh my goodness, this cannot end well. She sold her
Hmm.
house and like put in resignation for retirement, and
Hmm.
then just they're finding all these weapons and money, and yet they're in this small little Indiana place,
Yeah,
right?
I don't understand why they went there. Like,
I don't either.
why did they decide, like, why Indiana, and why did they decide to stay there for 2 weeks? They wanted to rent the hotel or whatever for 2 weeks, the motel. Just like, why stop there? I don't know.
I was curious about that too.
And people
I was
told me that the motel is like you could see the jail from where the motel was, the sheriff's office.
you
So
imagine? Oh man,
yeah,
that's
crazy.
funny. We have a joke up in Canada because in Saskatchewan, the province beside Alberta,
Hmm.
they make a joke like you can stand on a chair and watch your dog run away. Like there's just so much, you know.
Oh yeah.
It reminds me of that.
Hmm.
People are asking a question back to Suzanne about the coolers. Any more word on
Hmm.
these coolers? I know you talked to Andy and he said that he was asked about the coolers. Why is there no coolers in the house?
Yeah, I mean, we never even saw that mentioned in the arrest affidavit either. And another
Mm-mm.
thing, I never heard in the arrest affidavit that the house smelled like bleach.
That's
So,
right.
I mean, again, I don't know. I don't know what if there was ever coolers, and if there were coolers, why they weren't mentioned in the arrest affidavit. I don't know.
I'm sure as a hunter he would. I mean, I'm sure.
My
I have
dad's and he has multiple coolers, so you would
yeah.
think.
My twin brother's a hunter. My dad was a hunter. He's older now, so he doesn't go hunting. But yeah, I mean, this is what you
Yeah.
do. So it's just interesting. Yeah, the coolers were just not mentioned anymore. Yeah, we didn't
Yeah.
see that. There was a couple things that were not in that affidavit, and I was hoping to find out more information at trial. But we just I'm gonna choose that to say that it's just been postponed. That's what I'm hoping.
Mhm.
All right. Well, you guys, and Lauren, thank you so much for being on. It was a pleasure. I hope to have you on again. We'll just chit chat some more about some cases and the Gannon Stauch case as well.
For
Let's
sure.
get that show on the road. And yeah, we'll come back. Thank you so much.
Well,
And
thank you so much for having me. I really enjoy your channel as a viewer, as a fan. I really enjoyed it before this case, and so I really appreciate all that you do for a lot of victims and their families. And so keep doing what you're doing because you do a great job.
thanks, you too, Lauren. All
Thanks.
right, everybody, have a great night, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.